Manscaped.com /Road2Wembley. The code Road2Wembley, ROAD2WEMBLEY. Izzy,
Guys, have you ever tried this?
Izzy, talk to me. Fordy, talk to me.
No,
Gary, talk to me.
I'll be honest.
Free
with
on the
this,
spot.
yeah. I've never used the nose trimmer, but I've used the balls trimmer. And like, as a man, like sometimes you want to trim down there.
Why you use a nose trimmer though?
I don't know. I don't really need.
You don't get hairy nose.
It's not really.
He does.
Okay, cool.
But
No
I
one's
need the
told
balls
you that,
trimmer
obviously.
anyway, so
No.
I'm a hairy man, so we might have to add that into the accessories.
But you
No,
know,
honestly,
like,
guys,
you know,
seriously.
Like, you're normally nervous and like, you know, down there, bro, you don't
This
even
is the
get
one.
yeah, this is the one.
Yeah?
I tried it and I was like, I didn't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, Manscaped's the truth.
Yeah, so they've done
But you know what I like? The little light, you know.
Yeah,
The little light. I don't know why, even though there's lights in the... we said try it right now.
maybe when you get home. But yeah, no, it's very decent.
Ah,
It's very
don't kill me
decent.
today.
Nah, it's better than decent. Oh, wait, D, let me ask you a quick question. Have you used it yet? Because obviously you told me you was using scissors the last
mate,
time.
you lot, I hear your thing.
The only thing I would say though is like the boxes that sent were terrible.
Oh, you got to order your size, bro. That's what I'm saying. You got to order your size. Man trying to order the extra large.
your size,
And he needed the medium.
It's just the way it sits on the back.
Do they do cream?
Yeah, they do cream as well.
Okay.
Like
They do cream as well.
Chris.
Because our producer, Chris, I know it's summertime.
Give him the code. Give him the code.
It's summertime though. He's wearing grey shorts and his knees are greyer than his shorts.
Yeah, that's what you get, Chris.
Chris
There's
is
behind the camera. Can we get the camera on him?
Chris is just giggling.
Come out here, please. Chris, come out here, please. Let them
What
see
you said? I thought you had
Let them see
3/4
bro.
on.
Come. Chris, come.
I thought you had 3/4
Chris is
on.
looking at me like, save me.
They were shorts.
Chris, I can't save you today. I can't save you
Nah,
today.
nah.
These lot have been on.
Nah, we love you,
But
Chris.
no, I
Thanks,
wanted to thank our guest Gary Richards today.
Pleasure, boys.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
coming
coming in
down.
today.
Pleasure, boys.
Really
Coming,
appreciate
mate.
this, man.
Yeah, there's we got a lot to talk about today, but we just wanted to start with like the growing up and what it was like growing up for you in where you're from and your transition into what you got into.
Yeah, so a little, I suppose, a little background to myself. Born and raised Romford boy, Howard Hill, and come from a working class background, and obviously consider myself very lucky to have been brought into a good, solid family and strong infrastructure that always put good values into me to obviously work hard and all of the good transferable skills, and I suppose be true to yourself, you know. And my earliest ever passion, obviously, I found was kicking a ball around. I have two elder brothers myself. Obviously, Izzy used to play with my middle brother Lee, and obviously I have an elder brother as well too. So really watching them kind of grow up with a ball at their feet, seeing them get into obviously the likes of West Ham with Izzy and pursue obviously their own pathway within football, that obviously inspired me. Obviously a family that was already into sports and stuff like that as well too, to kind of, I suppose, pick up the ball and follow their path. I'm not somebody who comes with a real academic background. I was okay at school, but I didn't really have a passion for education, I think it's fair to say. And I suppose, again, seeing these boys before me go through their era of the FA Youth Cups and stuff like that, I was a few years behind them, and that really inspired me to actually really work hard and try and pursue a career in, obviously, in football when I'd left school. So I kind of give up a little bit of my education on those last couple of years, and fortunately I was lucky enough to have been given an opportunity to kick a ball when I did obviously eventually step out of school.
Wicked. So do you feel, just going back to the school thing, if you could go back, would you put more effort into school and the football, like equally, or you would have done it the same?
Everything's great in hindsight, isn't it? You know, so I suppose, yes, looking back now, and obviously today I'm a dad of two young boys as well too, and number 3 on the way. So again, to install that into them, to obviously play sports, because I believe that obviously playing sports, whether it's football or whatever it is, I think it installs a lot of good values into your children anyway. So I'll always encourage them to find a passion in sports, whether it's playing football or whether it's something else. But at the same time, for sure, you know, education, because of, again, I'm sure we'll come on to it, having to have sort of finished my career at a bit of a premature age. Obviously, I found myself at a bit of a challenging period a little bit sooner than kind of what I was expecting as well too. So yes, 100%. Use the sports side of things to develop those real transferable skills, but at the same time, get your head around the academic side of things and just do the best you can, you know?
Guys, obviously you mentioned your brother Lee. I was with him at West Ham, same age group. What age did you actually get called up? You started off at West Ham, right? Yeah. When did you join West Ham schoolboys?
I was quite young. Obviously, again, I was spending a lot of time on the side of the training ground with you boys at a real young age as well. And I suppose that probably gave me a little bit of a connection with some of the coaches and everything like that there as well. So I actually got into my first Sunday league team, I think, when I was under 7s or even under 8s.
Yeah.
So a little bit later than some of the kids, especially now.
Yeah.
And then I think it was about 3 years after that, under 11s, maybe even under 10s, under 10, 11s, stepped into the West Ham kind of Centre of Excellence kind of academy program. And then I spent pretty much most of my schooling in obviously what my time at school being in an academy program like West Ham.
Did anyone make it from your year go through the academy? Through
West Ham?
Yeah. Age group.
In my age group in particular, we had the likes of Mitchell Cole.
Yeah.
Obviously went on to make it, and obviously unfortunate situation with Mitchell. And then obviously the year above me was the likes of Anton Ferdinand and Elliot Wards. Yeah. Okay. Year below me, obviously Mark Noble, and so on and so forth. And then obviously a lot of boys out of my team went on to play sort of a good standard semi-professional.
Yeah, but so did you though, like, because at West Ham, obviously, if you're good enough, you'll get your pro at 17, and then if they might give you another year on scholarship, then maybe give it to you at 18. Did you manage to get the pro then at West Ham?
I'll be completely honest with you, and it might even be a little bit of value for any of the younger listeners really as well, or even any parents. And it's something I talk about a lot today, and something I talk about with passion, is that I spent, like I said, because I stepped into that professional, if you like, infrastructure at quite a young age. There was quite a lot of pressure to give up other areas of football as well, you know, 100%. Like schools football and district and county.
Ask about that.
And although that's a good thing, and because obviously the clubs want you to be disciplined and being able to give everything to your training sessions on a Tuesday and Thursday, and obviously your playing time on a Saturday or Sunday, they don't want to see you get injured whilst playing all of that stuff. For me, if I'm being completely honest with you, by the time I reached sort of 14, 15, and then approaching towards 16 years old, I lost a little bit of my passion for football.
Because the fun was taken out of it. It becomes serious. It becomes a job from 13 years old, doesn't it? That's the thing.
I was spending a lot of time in football, but I wasn't kicking a ball anywhere as much as I wanted to be. To the point was that at 13, 14 years old, it's great that you're able to do obviously a lot of the technical sessions and learn from some of the top coaches and in such an environment as that. At the same time, at that age, you really are developing the most in the playground.
100%.
You know,
you want to play free. We call it free football, like.
For sure. Yeah. So I went on a stint of a few years not playing any of that football, school football and everything. So by the time I reached sort of 15 years old, I think it was year 10, maybe just turning year 11, I hit a period of my playing career. At that time, it's just starting to get a little bit more serious. You know, you're thinking about the next step and stuff. My football kind of took a bit of a dip. My dad actually noticed it within myself. He actually he asked me the question whether I was still enjoying it. And after one game, I actually turned around to him and said, you know what, Dad, I'm really not enjoying it now. And he put the question on me. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, listen, you know, there's not pressure on my end.
Yeah, it's more like football,
this is you, it's your journey, it's your career. You've got a decision.
What age are you talking about at this point?
I was probably 15 then.
Yeah.
And my dad's always obviously guided me, but at the same time, he's always, I suppose, given me a bit of independence to make my own decisions at an early age. And I turned around to him and said, look, I don't know if I want to be involved at West Ham right now because I'm not enjoying it. I don't feel like I'm progressing. And in particular, I was working with a coach who was quite very in your face as well. And when things aren't going that way, sometimes as a good coach, you know, you just need a little bit of support and a bit of an arm around you. And I wasn't getting it.
You was a coach?
I don't want to mention people's names.
It's the kind of show
because I feel like he's downplaying his achievement because he was at like Colchester.
No, but he's gonna get to that. But
I feel like we're not.
It's the pressure. It's the pressure of football. Sometimes a lot of people don't understand that.
So it would have been like maybe schoolboy coaches.
Yeah, no, the coach at that time was Colin Reid. So
is he still there?
He's still involved in football and
not with West Ham though.
No, I think he's doing a lot within the professional ranks and stuff.
Okay.
Still.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but listen.
So hopefully he's grown. He's grown from that. Like we all grow, don't we? Yeah, we all grow and we change. And football's a lot different back then. Coaches, it was like. Mate. Yeah. It was very harsh, wasn't it? It's like there was no time for arm round you, was there?
Mate, it was so
it was
just to give a bit more context on it. There was lads coming out of that changing room at that time, like with tears in their eyes, you know, because of like we'd come in after games and it was quite in your face.
But I imagine that at West Ham because obviously your age, it was such an amazing academy. It was probably the best academy in the country at the time. Yeah. So the standards were so high. I feel like it was rather you're ready or you're not kind of thing.
Yeah, but a coach at 15 years old shouldn't be pushing you that much though. Shouldn't be in your face.
Yeah, but everyone wanted the next. They wanted to be the coach that makes the next lot of maybe your team or do you know what I mean? It's difficult. But you had it.
Though, at 15, like, I don't think. To be fair, the boys in my year group, though, I don't think someone could have stepped to us and be like.
No, but we were lucky though.
We weren't that kind.
But you still got places to express yourself. You was playing district, school. Do you know what I mean? I know we moaned about like playing too much football before, but you were still playing places where you could express yourself and it weren't the pressure. We both know what it's like being at a club and every Sunday or whatever it was, it's like, it's a big game. Mum and dad's like, you got to do well. Coach is like, today we got such and such. It's like, it already becomes a job before you even know what a job is.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Agree. Like what Lee,
if you're going through that, like,
it's your brother, it's Lee's
brother. Yeah.
Right, we'll let you, that's one down.
What Gaz was saying, like, you know, with the coach and that, luckily at Schoolboys, we had Peter Braybrook, like, you know, rest in peace, Pete. And Pete was great with us. Don't get me wrong, it was hard, but it was fair as well. Yeah. Till we met with Tony and that, and like, but what you're saying, like, I don't think I would have got on with a coach at that age when there was just constantly shouting at us. Yeah. Like,
but that's the difference. It's the finer details that stop things from happening. Do you know what I mean? So say you was Gaz's age, you might not have had the career you had, or you might not have propelled the way you propelled because it's about coaches, it's opinions, it's coaches, it's having the right people at the right time. You can, like, there's so many players that have the talent. Yeah. But you might not have been nurtured the right way for you. Yeah. There's some people that can take a bollock and then they're like, all right, I'm going to go and show you. But there's other people that's like, come on, mate. Do you know what I mean? I just want to play football. I want to enjoy it.
How did you get on with that though? You just didn't, did you leave?
Yeah, what kind of side were you with? Like,
I ended up quitting. I said to my dad, I said, I want to quit.
I don't think you quit.
I quit football as I knew it then, which was stepping out of a professional structure. Yeah. And really what I was saying is that I want to go back to being able to play on a playground.
Enjoying yourself.
Back to school football. And have a bit of freedom to express yourself and spend some time with your mates having a kickabout, you know. Which I hadn't really had, you know, throughout that whole time. Like I said, it got... a lot of it's internal pressure that you put on yourself as well too, because you obviously want to do
especially
well.
Especially your younger brother, you've got the older brothers and stuff as well. You want to follow their
was that even that, like, it sounds a bit stupid saying it, right? But even at lunchtime, there was a lot of times when other people was just having, like, you know, knockout Wembleys and a ball against the wall stuff, and I was worried about the training that evening getting injured because of it was quite a strong environment that. You know, there was lads at that age covering themselves up that they'd got injured in their school football and they would try and get themselves through training or pull one out during training.
I've done that.
Yeah, because they didn't want to be known as the person that was doing stuff away from the academy structure, you know.
So what did you do after that though? When you left West Ham, and you know, like you said, you went back to enjoying your football. When did you get back into the pro?
I really quickly realised actually I was missing it, to tell the truth, and I was
Competitive level of it. Like.
Yeah, and I picked up and obviously I'm looking at the clock a little bit. I'm looking. I realised I wasn't that academic, you know, and I was then I was thinking actually, yeah, exactly. I'm going to have to go and get a job and everything. And that my dad was always true, and he was real with that, and he always just said, look, that's cool if you don't want to do that, no problem, but you've either got to go and get an education, or you could end up on the building site with me, you know. So that was kind of my options as I knew it, and as my dad knew it then as well. So I kind of worked out I didn't want to do that. I wanted to enjoy my football again, and I did. For about 6 months, I played some school football. I'd be spending some time with my friends on the playground again. And I started to get a call from a guy called Jeff Harrop. I don't know if you've ever come across him at Colchester United. And he started calling my house phone. Mobiles didn't really exist too much then. And he was speaking obviously to my parents. Can I speak with Garry? It's Jeff from Colchester, and so on and so forth. We had a couple of conversations, and all he said was, what's the situation? Because obviously he'd heard through the grapevine somehow what happened. I told him that I wasn't looking to get myself back involved just yet. I wanted to enjoy my football. And he was really good at just keeping contact. Every couple of months he would check in. And after about probably 8 or 9 months, he checked in a couple of times. How's things going? Yeah, things going really well. Listen, just to let you know, there's a couple of games coming up. We'd love to have you up in, but appreciate no pressure. And he always just had a real good door open for me, and I had a real good, probably, you know, when you just get a good feel from someone.
Or something, yeah.
And I said to me, Mum and Dad, like, I want to go up to Colchester and just try it out. And I went up there, and it was a world from what I was used to with West Ham, but I got that feeling of like someone having an arm around me, people that care, people enjoying it. And I could see something in a smaller family-run sort of a family feel sort of club, I suppose, you know.
I think that's a very important story, because I feel like so many parents and maybe kids feel like if you're at a top club, that's the be all and end all. Like you could never step away. So to know that you can,
if you're there from young as well.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's difficult to, like, your decision was so brave to go and play football and just enjoy it again.
Yeah.
And without maybe doing that, you might not even had a career. Do you know what I mean? So it's things like that where there's a lot of boys that be like, I got to stay at the club for as long because 100%. It's a top club and I got to be there, and then they end up getting released and they realize they don't love football, or they can't they can't adapt to going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Fair play to your dad as well, though.
I was going to say, to be fair, because he giving the options and the support and all of that. Like, I feel that's very important. You grew up with your mum and dad, obviously, from the stories. And again, I feel that's like, it's such an important thing, but it's not the be all and end all, but also it's nice to have that male figure to give you them options. Because we saying you end up on the building site with me, you could have turned around and said, yeah, all right, then I don't mind doing that. And I feel he would have supported you.
Yeah.
We had someone on the other week that followed his dad's footsteps in that kind of thing, and it worked out for him. So there's different avenues. We ain't got one. I feel kids have to realize, and parents as well, there's not just one avenue to success.
Yeah. But even the pressure side of it, like, he didn't pressure you to stay at West Ham. He just said, look, it's your decision. You're 15 years old. If you're not enjoying it, just like go and enjoy your football.
But again,
like,
not everybody has that option though.
Are pressuring their kids. You know
Let me ask you, what did you do then when your dad said to you gonna build himself, or after the football period? Because I see you went to Brentford and Colchester and a few other places. What skill did you actually end up utilizing, or what did you end up doing after that?
As in from school?
Yeah, no. When you went to, because obviously
you're talking about after the football.
I'm talking about after the football. Yeah, I'm gonna go after football.
No, I was still at school, you know. So I was coming to the end of my schooling days as such. GCSEs were around the corner. I realised obviously I wasn't going to do too well in there. I didn't want to go to college and further education. So the only thing that I kind of knew was what I'd seen my whole life already, which was go on the floors with my dad and my brothers. They're floor layers, you know. Even my brothers, and 2 oldest brothers, they're both floor layers now. Yeah. And with great respect, my dad's always been as honest as the day's long. Even now in his 60s, he's grafting on the building sites and stuff, because that's all he's ever known. And but he's always been very truthful with me to say, obviously, this is what's behind the future looking like in my industry, you know. And there was only kind of two options, I suppose, for me, was that give it a go with football or to do that. Because at that age, you haven't explored anything.
Did you feel like you always had that to fall back on, though? If you didn't pursue your dream, did you always feel like you had that you could always rely on, kind of thing?
Yeah, that was always the thing that I thought if it weren't going to work out in football, then I would
work with your dad.
Yeah, I'd fall in line. You know, like all my cousins, my uncles, pretty much. We laugh about it. Family of floor layers.
Yeah.
So it's the thing that you do.
So good having something like
Yeah,
that.
no,
Try to fall back on though.
It might be hard though, but at least you have something to fall back on.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
But fair play to your dad again, as we said before.
Yeah, and I think in that role that my dad played then, that mentorship sort of role where he kind of give me that sort of freedom to make my own choice and follow my own path. Obviously spoke really well to kind of give me the both sides of the fence. When I did then pick up the reins a little bit with football and decide actually I want to give it a shot, a big catalyst for me in everything I do today and everything that I've done through my football career. My mum and dad have always been my biggest supporters, you know.
Yeah, I can sense that.
Yeah, like it's not to have played at the highest possible level and have a real lavish lifestyle. I mean, all that stuff's great, but for me, it was to look at my mum and dad's face
smile on their face,
and heart pull away to go, do you know what, I've put on to give my best today, I'm putting a good performance and they've travelled 5 hours to watch it, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I've been there. 100%.
When you did end up going to Colchester, and that was what, 17?
Straight from school, so 16.
Oh, you went into the YT at Colchester.
Straight into YT.
So you played a couple of games and they decided to sign you. Yeah. And what, just scholarship?
There was only a couple of months left to run of that kind of year 11 period, so it's probably like Christmassy sort of time then. I was pretty much signed for the rest of the season, and then when you leave school, start your scholarship, you know. Okay.
So and you enjoyed it as soon as you went there?
As soon as I went there, to be fair, I got a good feel.
Good bunch of lads around you.
Good bunch of lads, some good coaches, and again, my parents said to me, "Do you know what? If you do well and you progress, there's a good progression path at somewhere like Colchester where young lads do get an opportunity." You know.
Yeah.
Did you move up there?
I stayed in Diggs when I left school.
Like?
That was
It's smile.
I'm just thinking that kind of, you know, like again, Izzy will know, lads in football become men quite quickly because you kind of have to. It's almost 100%. A bit like, not comparing it to that well, but military people, if they go into like their digs and barracks and stuff. Like I left school, did my last GCSE. 5 days later, I'm in digs living with a family that I kind of didn't know on my own, and then you're having to kind of fend for yourself a little bit. All right, I wasn't the other side of the country or the world. I was only an hour away from home, but it's all new again, you know.
Daunting,
at that age, of course it is, because everyone thinks footballers are spoiled, but they don't see the little things like that the sacrifice they have to make, moving away from families and growing up quick, learning to do stuff for yourself very quickly. Although we are still babied by the club a little bit, as in you can stay young as possible, but there's a lot of stuff you have to really grow up and grasp very quickly if you want to make it. For sure. And again, it installs such a good work ethic behind you, and it almost it kind of cuts all your strings for you, because you're like, well, listen, I'm away from all my all your comforts, all your comforts very much,
and literally, I remember being sat in my digs for the very first evening, looking out my bedroom window, going, "This is it. All my friends are doing X, Y, and Z." Your phone stops to ring quite quickly because if they realise you can't do anything anyway, and you're like, "I'm here now. I might as well kind of just give it my best." So definitely. But at the same time, it takes away a lot of those distractions. Kind of, I see some of them close friends go on their own paths and stuff, and they didn't always turn out to be the best. And who's to say what would happen between 16 to 18 years old? You're exploring a lot, you're learning a lot and stuff. So it put me on a path. It put me in an environment where football was life, you know.
And you did give it your best, because you kind of broke into the first team pretty quickly. How old was you?
I was kind of 18 when I started to get on periphery of the first team, started to travel.
Sorry, guys, stop you quickly. What position did you play? Just for the.
You only need to look at me nose for that. Centre half.
Centre half gang. All right, mate.
What do you mean by that? You got to break it down for the viewers.
I've had a few bashes to me nose. So I've had
the defender. He's one of us.
Coming over.
Yeah, definitely. So a few broken teeth and a few broken noses, you know. So yeah, I was centre half. I was obviously consider myself a good sort of honest centre half, a good work ethic and stuff. But going back to your earlier question is that at 18 years old, again, I'd size on my side. I was a bigger lad. I was quite aggressive.
Yeah.
I suppose I had a good attitude at that time. I like to keep myself fit and stay active in training. And the gaffer at that time was Phil Parkinson.
Yeah,
and
he had a good team then. To be fair,
I
remember
that team actually.
What a good team.
And he was someone who really loved, especially the young lads, train how you play.
Yeah.
And I wasn't shy, as his knows, I wasn't shy to get stuck into a few.
You wasn't shy.
Training. Yeah.
You love training.
No, I loved it. But that, you know what? I was thinking like that time at West Ham might have helped you.
But I think that's a West Ham thing,
you know
though,
what I
isn't
mean?
it?
Yeah, because
you lot were so competitive against each other.
Definitely.
Like when you faced other people, it's like, well, they're not as good as what we're training against, so it don't matter.
For sure. And again, coming back to that environment, when you do step away from West Ham, you step into a different environment, that schooling and being around that sort of that calibre, all of a sudden, I suppose it gives you a little bit of extra confidence. That
bit
extra
of
boost.
aura in it, though, yeah.
And then I tell a quick story. Was on my debut, I think I'd just turned 19 at this stage. I'd been travelling. I'd been on the bench. No, I hadn't been on the bench. I'd only been travelling, so I was T-ball and the coach.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
A lot of people don't know about the T-ball and the coach.
You think you're travelling and you're going to sit there at the back of the coach with all the big boys
playing poker and all that.
You realize that years later.
100%. And but you serve your time and you do your due diligence. And then it was actually I was in the squad, or what I thought I'd be in the squad. We was playing Bristol Rovers away. It's a live game on Sky. At that point, we didn't start the season that well. I think we was 18th in the league at that stage, and Bristol were up there. They had Mickey Bridges up front and Big Brooker up front, and a good squad. And obviously Ashton Gate was always a tough place to go anyway. We trained at Reading on the way down. We obviously got down there the following day, do your warm up and everything, and I thought I was going to be. I'm in the squad. I was in the squad. You kind of get a feel for the team on the Friday night, Friday daytime, and then someone had a strain on the Saturday morning, and then Gaffer's like, "Oh, you're on the bench." But you start to get a little bit nervous because it's the first time properly on the bench and stuff. And then all of a sudden, when all the teams have gone in the warm up, the physio comes out. You know, Ashton Gate, the tunnels at the other end of the pitch. You know, physios come out, Gaz, shouting and hollering. And I was like, what's he shouting for? And all of a sudden, you're like, surely not. And all of a sudden, the teams are.
That's the best way, though, isn't it? No time to think about it.
Another injury. And
they've both pulled out. They're shitting themselves. They think they're.
Guys, you're starting up front. You're a striker today.
Straight in, shirts on, and obviously.
Right back.
No, it's centre half on the other boys, but And but it was a blessing because I didn't have a moment to think about obviously the nerves and stuff, and even at that point, obviously my parents were watching the game. They hadn't travelled. It was one of the few ones.
It's on Sky, though, isn't it?
It's on Sky.
Yeah.
Obviously all the family had tuned in and stuff, and we went down to 10 men after 20 minutes, and my other centre half got sent off.
What a debut!
And we come away with a 0-0 draw.
Oh, buzzing!
So
against Bridges and that,
so it was a good.
That's amazing.
So the defence was solid.
Quality, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we had a real young defence that day. It was George Ellakobe coming through and Johnny White as well too. We was all 19. We had a back three made up of 19-year-olds. Oh wow! Which was amazing, you know.
That's a great day.
Live on Sky, yeah.
Live on Sky. So
that's a great day, isn't it? That's not bad.
You only got to play about 100 games, right? 100 league games, and you had a serious injury before you retired. Please just tell us about that.
So my injury came about when I was 26 years old. I'd had a couple of
So young.
injuries.
Same as me.
I'd had a couple of injuries. My first bad injury was at Millwall. I was 22, I think, a collision with a keeper. That was nearly, or was a year out. And I thought that was my first time where I was a bit like, oh, am I going to make it back? But anyway, obviously I made it back a couple of seasons in. And then, I was 26 years old and was playing Barnet at home in a now Carabao Cup fixture. I think then it was maybe the Carling Cup or one of those names. And then it was an incident where, unfortunately, a striker turned up with a certain attitude, and you kind of have your usual argy-bargy and stuff. But in particular that night, you could obviously easy knows when your striker's kind of on your toes a little bit more, then they're pulling your shirts, they're treading on your toes and stuff. That it was a little bit different that night, to be honest with you. And again, that's no problem because of
Football,
you kind of relish a little bit of the battle as well. And I was someone who always liked that battle. So I was like, kind of, when strikers kind of turn up that way, I'm like, you're kind of playing into my game a little bit because of it's when you get the small ones that are trying to twist and turn around your feet. You know, that's where I really kind of had the tougher afternoons. So I was like, okay, cool, no worries, we'll punch on and have a good evening. And then it was only 12 minutes into the game where the striker actually walked across the back of me with the ball at the other end of the pitch. The goalkeeper just rolled the ball out his box as if he's going to kind of obviously launch it down the field. I was the deepest man, just retreating, walking backwards basically, and the striker kicked me or stamped on me standing leg from behind, and obviously caught it perfectly where my foot was planted in the ground and snapped my fib. And at the time, they didn't realise the tibia had dislocated out the back of the ankle joint, and then straight back in. So what I was expecting to be out for 4 to 6 months with a spiral fracture to the fib. I've managed to get away with the metal rods through the leg and everything, so I kind of got the all clear that I could play again after a sort of a 3 to 4 month window. And then fast forward from there, 3 months later, when I just signed a new contract, believe it or not, at Luton Town on a 2-year contract on the base I'll be fit for the following season. And then when I was trying to get through the pre-season, my ankle was terrible. Yeah, you know, obviously,
just not right.
You're at a new club, you want to impress. Not right. I had a couple of injections. Eventually, end up MRI and putting an MRI scan into the ankle, and then the James Calder, the obviously top ankle specialist, kind of turned around and said, "Is this some sort of joke?" I was that, and he said, "You've completely dislocated the ankle. It's come back in and it's destroyed all of your cartilage, and there's a lot going on." Jeez. We're going to have to do. I said, what does that mean? He said, we're going to have to do serious surgery. Best case scenario, you're going to come back to be able to play like a Ledley King again, train and play once or twice every couple of weeks, get a run out every couple of weeks. Worst case scenario, we're going to have to extend the surgery, put a screw straight through the ankle, and you'll never be able to run again. And obviously a real upsetting time then. And I kind of said, well, what are you thinking? And he looked me square in the eye, I'll never forget it. And he said, Ledley Kings don't survive at your level.
Not many. Yeah,
and but it was honestly was the best policy.
True,
obviously, it's a very upsetting moment, and upsetting to hear that. And he said that's the best case scenario. And I said, what are you trying to say? He said, if I was you, I'd start to think about life after. And that was that.
Wow. That's a good gateway to where we're going. It's obviously who was the striker?
Isaac McLeod.
No way. Wow. Did you ever get any compensation for that?
No, I've never.
Did you sue the club?
Did they ever?
MK Dons, right?
Did they not pick it up?
Yeah.
On the scan or anything, or did they just go for the February? We say, yeah.
Yeah.
So they didn't
think
about anything else.
Because of the break in the fib was so high, it was halfway up my leg. So I never actually, believe it or not, I never had an MRI scan initially on the ankle.
You're joking.
By the way,
yeah.
Solid as fuck. So I swear, but like to have that injury and to think I could start a pre-season.
Yeah. Was it? Do you think it was intentional? He meant to hurt you.
100%.
That's why I asked.
We come from a different time, though. But a lot you can get away with anything in the game, especially back then.
I'm sure
within the game you can. Who?
You can. So the
You
basis,
can if
obviously,
it's like thing, but the basis of it, if they say what was in the game, like,
you can prosecute now on the field. You have to have video evidence. And the ironic thing that evening was that both cameras on that evening were facing the ball.
Yeah.
Which is at the other
if
end
the
of
keeper's
pitch.
going to kick it out, they're not going to be looking. They're not going to be focused.
But
on
you
it.
can.
It's not like nowadays where they
You
get
hear me go down. Like,
50
if
million
the
cameras.
camera had panned 5 yards or even a second before, it would have obviously got it. You can hear pretty much the break. You can hear me obviously scream, hit the deck, and I always said to me, it was kind of a statement really more for the boys in the dressing room, because I don't take too well of people just rolling around the deck and taking stretches off. It drives me crazy a little bit. And I always said to the lads, and I always said to myself, obviously there's been incidences on the pitch where I've gone down and been knocked out and broken some stuff, and stretchers have come on, and I've always refused them.
Yeah,
People say, why do you refuse? And it was a bit of a moral thing, I suppose. And I always said to the boys, I said, the only time you'll ever catch me getting on that stretcher is when I don't make it back onto a football pitch.
Yeah.
And that was the only time I ever made it on a stretcher.
Oh,
you know?
That's crazy.
It's a sad story, then.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to change the dynamic. I want to get onto Herbal Life.
The afterlife.
Yeah, Herbal Life, and obviously we got there's another we've got another track on.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask, like, because obviously when we've had this like podcast going on, we always talk about transitioning.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about
You know what I mean?
transition.
So
Like from the
when
injury.
from when the injury, the doctors asked him, said to him, "Look, you're gonna have to give up." Like, how was his mental?
What was
state?
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
what was
how
your
was his
mindset? Because
mental-
I've
mindset
had
then
a similar thing, and
Yeah.
I know what it done to me. But I'd love to hear.
Yeah, your mindset at the time, like, because
Like
you
when
didn't,
you
you
heard
didn't
that,
know anything else.
I know they give you the options, but like, we're always gonna focus
And
on.
did you believe
the
in the
worst?
options?
And back then, obviously, technology, as in terms of surgery and stuff, wasn't what it is now.
Yeah, I obviously, when you sit there and a guy like James Calder looks you square in the eye and kind of delivers that sort of news, it's the real deal, you know. So, listen, I'm a man who kind of tries to say it as it is, and that afternoon, I didn't break down to James Calder, but I broke down in my car.
Of course.
I was in tears driving
Can I
down.
ask, sorry, who was your first call?
My first call was my dad.
Yeah, mine was as well.
Yeah, my dad and my mum. And after a little whimper to myself, obviously, you go through everything, obviously, in an instant. You go through self-pity,
What could you have done differently?
very anxious,
Angry
as well,
bitterness,
yeah.
every emotion
Everything.
is
Why
bottled
not?
up, And so eventually, obviously, I got on the North Circular. You make your calls, and your head's just kind of spinning, and I was obviously as in tears, and it was tears as much as anything of worry, you kind of accept that your football career is gone, but very quickly you switch on to what am I going to do next, and I suppose it had planted a seed, that ironic moment, or that kind of statement moment where I was on the stretcher. I'll never forget when I got on a stretcher and I was coming off. I knew it was a bad one. You know when you've snapped your leg and stuff. That was the big thing that you starts to go through your head. It's like, I might not make it on a pitch, and then you're like, oh, actually, I'm out of contract in 3 months' time. What next? But I kind of got over that at that point, because obviously I got told I'd make a comeback, and then all of a sudden that journey out of London that afternoon, travelling back home around the North Circular, it was, what am I going to do next? Going back to what we spoke about earlier, it took me back to being 16 and 17 years old again. I'm going to become a floor layer with my dad and my brothers.
Is that your first thought? And obviously, you've had to give up the game. Not knowing you thought you was going to go work with your dad as a floor layer. Obviously, you didn't want to do that. Your brothers were doing that as well. That wasn't your passion. When did you fall into what you're doing now?
When did you decide? What did you
decide how did you get
when
into
you said you did
what
when you said
you do now?
When you said
Tell us what you do now.
Hold on a
Yeah,
second.
yeah, that's the
no, wait.
question.
When
What
you
did
said
you
you
do
didn't
next?
want to be a floor layer, what was your plan? Like, because we've been
if
there,
they-
we've both been there.
Run
We've
away.
both been there. We got no clue what up. I had no plan. I was like,
No plan.
What's
No plan
transferable?
whatsoever.
What can I do?
No plan
I ain't got a
whatsoever.
clue. So where was you at after the state when you realized I don't want to go and work with my dad? what you're gonna do.
If you thought that.
If you thought that, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna laugh now.
No, go on.
Is that afternoon?
Really?
Not that I was like, I'm gonna do this, but that's the afternoon
that's
I had
great.
the conversation with my sponsor in Herbal Life. You know, Danny Spiller. You know, you boys know Danny obviously from his footballing days and what have you. Is that Danny was one of my first calls after my initial family. In actual fact, Danny called me on the North Circular because I didn't want to speak to anyone else, to tell the truth. And he called me because Danny had come from Gillingham to Luton with me, and our stories
so you had a
then
relationship
were we started to travel together in the car because he would come over the bridge, pick me up from Brentwood in the morning. So I kind of got an idea of what he was up to and stuff, and said many times it wasn't for me.
They still travel in the cars together.
The car school.
I think the car school's amazing.
Some of the best times in the car school.
Some of your best friends in the car
Honestly.
school.
But so obviously we'd grown close because he'd arrived at Luton. Ironically, he'd damaged his Achilles that summer. So we was travelling together, but we was in the physio room together.
Longer days.
Yeah, you can imagine. And then he called me because obviously he knew that I was booked in to see the specialist, and he wasn't expecting obviously the news. Gaz, how did it go this morning? Obviously, he could get straight away the feel for my voice, and I just said what happened, and he kind of just turned around and said, "Oh, you don't sound in great shape. Where are you now?" I said, "I'm approaching Mum and Dad's sort of house at Romford Way," and then I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm just coming around the M25 on the way back from football. Do you fancy grabbing a coffee in Brentwood, have a little catch up?" And obviously, just as friends as you do, you go for a coffee. We end up in Nando's, and we sat down over lunch, and we had a bit of a heart to heart. Obviously, I told him what had gone on that morning, and he asked me the question. Obviously, he had his own things going on within Herbal Life, and he said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "Damn, I don't know. I'll probably just end up on the building site with my dad and my brothers." And then the next thing that he asked me, obviously really hit me, was, is that something you really want to be doing? And I said, no, it's not something I really want to be doing. When all of a sudden you realise you've taken your football career a little bit for granted, you know?
100%.
And
one focus, isn't it?
And then he asked me the third question, is why are you going to do it then? And I answered in a real typical way, like many people.
True.
And it's
like,
true.
why are you gonna? It's like when you think you're gonna do it. When someone says to you, "Why?" That's what I was gonna say. It's a proper friend, right? Yeah.
And it was. And I turned around, and the only answer I could come up with was,
"Don't know anything else."
Pays the bills.
Yeah.
And
so many
off the
people
back of
fall
that,
into that.
Obviously, that's when he spoke to me. He said, "Gaz, look, I know I spoke to you about it before." He'd spoke to me for nearly about 8 or 9 months before that. I'd seen what he was already doing. And he said, "But I really think you should take a look at Herbal Life. I was already using the product. I was loving the product already. I disqualified that from even. I wasn't even thinking that.
No one cares about when you're playing football. No one cares about anything else.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like you can't tell me. You could have told me, "Oh, you can go and do this job for an hour a day and earn 10 grand." I'll be like, "Well, I'm a footballer. I don't care."
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's no focus on anything else.
I would have done it.
When you say you was sorry, Ford.
You would have done it. Yeah.
When you say you was already using
What could they get? 10 bags.
what was you using? And
I know the exaggeration was too strong.
What is it? What is it that you was using? And what was you already using? What benefits were you decide that you thought, okay, let me use this kind of thing?
A protein shake, mainly, though, right?
I was using a basic breakfast plan, so we have a little smoothie that you have for breakfast. Obviously, he spoke to me 6 months before that about obviously the product. My breakfast wasn't up to much shape, just a regular bowl of cereal.
I was gonna ask
Again, I didn't have no nutritional background or anything like that. And he obviously I'd seen him and the lads start to get the results in the dressing room. That actually opened my eyes a little bit, because obviously the results is obviously what captured.
No, it's so true, because I always feel like they got to teach lads coming. Well, they do it now.
Yeah.
But when we were playing, I don't know about you.
Yeah, I didn't have breakfast before training.
No, did I? I couldn't eat. Like before a game, I struggled to eat. Like they didn't teach. They tried to later on, but it's too late once you're not. It was never too late, but I feel that's something that they've taken on now. Nutrition.
Yeah,
they're all athletes now,
things
right?
evolve, don't they? You know, and obviously new sciences and technologies come out, and like I said, it was obviously swapping what I was having then, which was not much, or just about regular bowl of cereal, having the smoothie in there, and then I was already doing things. Again, you boys will know. Obviously, when you're playing football, the club are giving you, have this after workout, have this during your workout, and so I was already having the post workout. It's not always the best. It's whatever's going cheap with the club, I suppose, at the time. 100%. And I didn't get on too well with it. Some of them I found didn't sit well with my digestion and stuff. And so Dan said, look, get yourself started with the breakfast, get yourself started with the post-workout smoothie, and just take things from there. And then, yeah, fast forward there, obviously energy started to go up, the normal story. Body fat started to come down, and then straight away you're a bit like, is this a placebo type effect? You know, and you go through all of that whole journey and what have you. And then after about a month or two, I was like, actually, this is working. I'm going to continue. And I just suppose really accepted it then into this is what I'm going to do alongside my football. I was aware that obviously there was an opportunity behind it and stuff, and I didn't get it. I didn't want to get it. I see myself still playing till sort of mid-30s, and I was the mindset of most footballers is I'll think about it then, you know.
So so in terms of Herbal Life, then let's talk about that for a bit. Then what would you talk to us about it then? Because obviously you're invested in it at the minute, right? I'm assuming.
What stage are you in Herbal Life?
We have a level that we call the President's Team level. So yeah, you have obviously your levels in Herbal Life is based. So
you're at the presidential level.
Yeah.
When did you start? Did you start straight after your injury?
What does that mean?
I started that afternoon coming out of.
Oh really? So you didn't just take to it. You went straight into it.
I'll cast you back. I was desperate. I had no money in my bank.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and
I love that.
And listen, it wasn't. I didn't want to change the nutritional habits of the world at that time. I wanted to make some money. You know?
100%.
So when you're talking about presidential level, obviously in anything, when you mention presidential level, you're doing well in life. You know what I mean? So to reach that level, what do you have to do? How does it work? If you explain to explain to an alien who just came down to Earth.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interject you because one of my friends is associated with it. I'm not sure what level he's at, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I heard about it through him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He's hard on it. He loves it. He's invested in it.
Yeah.
And he got me focused on that.
Yeah.
And then when I spoke to Izzy and he spoke to you and you said to me, you're not to say presidential level, but you're probably a lot higher up than my friend. I'm thinking, okay, so what does this mean? Because
how everything works. If
like,
you could just explain it to people that don't know.
Yeah, because exactly. What's the situation? Because obviously
so from the start to where you got to, where you are now.
Initially, I'll be very straight. Initially, I got started to make an extra few £100 a month, £1,000 a month, because I was preparing for. I didn't start Herbal Life to build a career and build a big community and help a lot of people.
You've been very honest. You've been way more honest than I thought you'd be, by the way.
No, but no one gets anything.
You've been very, very honest.
But this is the journey that most people go on within Herbal Life, you know? You share.
Because my friend's on it more on a pyramid scheme level. That, not to say that he is, but that's the level that I feel like he comes at the angle with. I don't know.
It's a multi-level structure, so obviously we get rewarded on the impact that we're able to make to obviously other people, both on the health basis, so the results that we're putting out there in the marketplace, and also the financial basis. The more people that we're making, more money, and then more people that we're making, the more money as well too, through helping other people. So like I said, going back then, I got started to make a little sideline income, because my plan with Herbal Life was, okay, when I spoke to Dan and he showed me what he was doing and what he was bringing into him, I was like, okay, that's great. But if I can just make an extra £1,000, £1,500 a month, I can go and lay floors with my dad and my brothers, or maybe even something else,
and pay some bills,
and that extra bit of money. Is going to get me back to financially to a League Two / lower League One basis, you know. So that's where it all started. But it progressed obviously a bit quicker. I started to work things out a little bit quicker, and it became obviously that sideline income within a few months, and within a short space of time, I'd managed to replace my football income whilst I was still getting my football wage. And naturally, obviously, you become more passionate for the process, and obviously what it actually means. And naturally it became more of an organic transition, really, that when when that day eventually came, that I already had something built in place within Herbal Life, that it was already my main source of income as such.
So explain to people though. Sorry,
real question.
No.
Was it the passion for the product or the money that made you go with it? Do you know what I mean?
And initially,
I know it was the money,
initially
but I'm
the
saying
money,
like
though.
initially you
It's
said it was
always
the
the
money.
money,
I know.
You believed
I'm
in
saying
it
like you
after.
said you started to believe in it, but like I believe in a lot of things.
Yeah.
They don't make me money, so
Yeah.
I don't care about them that much.
Yeah.
So if I was making money off some of the stuff that I believe in, that's probably what would drive me more to push it. So was it the money or the product that you was pushing more for yourself, like either pushing that out for yourself?
what I suppose what you asking me is what motivated me
Yeah.
initially was obviously.
I'm not saying that motivates everyone. I'm asking you, like you.
The money motivated me initially, but it was quite an easy thing to motivate me on because I already had the passion
Something
for the
you believed
product.
in.
I believed in the product, you know.
Okay.
So it weren't like a product that I weren't already using myself, and then I'm pushing it to other people in the expectation of, I hope they buy and I can make some money. It's like, hey, I'm using this product. You should use it as well. So it became obviously a natural thing. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to get paid for it. Brilliant.
It's a no-brainer.
So that's what got me into it. And I suppose now, again, it's both. Obviously, I'm very passionate for the company, the business, the product, the people that we help. The stories that we create is amazing. And I'm also not going to hide behind the fact that, listen, Herbal Life has given me a lifestyle and give me a platform for time freedom to be able to spend time with my family and watch my kids grow up from babies, you know. So it's all of that stuff, really, you know.
Guys, it's an interesting question like Dee asked earlier on. You know, I wanted to kind of like ask you one more time because, you know, you mentioned multi-levels, right?
Yeah.
And he asked you, you know, you must have heard this loads of time about pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme.
I was the one who was giving it at the start, yeah. I was the one coming out with that objection at the start.
No, but yeah, it's true. So like, you know, this is like whenever you get anything multi-level platforms, you bring people in to go up and things like that. It ends up being kind of a Ponzi. If you can explain how Herbal Life differs from that a little bit, you know what I mean, for people who kind of want to come into it, who listen into this.
Yeah. But by the way, I wasn't ignoring your question earlier.
No.
I'm pleased you asked.
I didn't feel like that.
Yeah,
We took away from him.
I'm pleased you brought it back.
That's why he's behind the camera.
So, in a nutshell, what I thought was one of those things that people at the top can make all the money. You can't progress past them and all of that stuff. But going back to kind of what is a pyramid scheme, people say to me, now obviously I said that at the start. It's a pyramid scheme. It's only one of those things where people at the top can make all the progress and so on and so forth. And really important to note that when people say that to me, I say, what is a pyramid scheme? I say, I don't know, but it sounds like one of those things where people at the top make all the money, and we're like the
trigger word,
little
isn't it?
guys,
Yeah,
you know.
Kind of.
It's a trigger word, isn't it?
Sure. And by the way, I respect that because that's what I thought at the start. Now, obviously, I know that obviously pyramid schemes are very illegal, and very legal today, and they're going to be illegal for as long as we're here today, you know. And in a pyramid scheme, you're paid on the recruitment of people. So in Herbal Life, by the way, do those things exist? Of course they exist. You know, Herbal Life's a multi-level marketing business in the fact that we get paid on the consumption of our products and the impact that we're making in the marketplace. Sounds a bit fluffy, right? So to put it in simple terms,
to recruitment.
No, if I could introduce 100 people tomorrow, I don't get paid.
So
you can introduce 100 people, and you don't get paid.
Introducing how though, unless they buy the product?
No, they could sign up and say, I want to be part of the business.
To work under you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, okay.
I don't get paid on that. In a pyramid scheme, if I recruited 100 people, when they join, I will get a commission back in that. When I get paid, and this is the difference in the multi-level structure, is that if someone joins the team, is I get paid when I help them start to make money for themselves. So i.e. when they start to eat a product, I'll start to get paid a small commission. When they start to make a service out there, when they start to help 5 customers, when they start to help 10 customers, when they start to help more customers, each transaction, they get paid more than me or the upline, the person above them in the chain. but we get paid obviously a small commission. So the amazing thing about it is the more people that we can help, again, as kind of cheesy as that sounds, is the more that we can obviously have in return.
Yeah.
And
which makes it very close to what we were just asking. You know, I mean, there's a thin line between that.
But then,
you're saying no sell, no profit for you, as in like if you recruitment is, but we don't sell, you don't make no money.
Yeah.
Or is 100%. If we start selling, but then we recruit D and Chris, and then we start selling, they start selling, and we're selling, then you eat more. Is that how it works? Like it's a level. Like, so if we make money from them, and you make money from both, from us and them. Is that what it is?
I'm going to answer two ways, right? Yeah, yes. I'll make a small commission on that. But let's just say, for example, it's free in a chain, right? I'm top of the pyramid. Right? Let's put it this way, right? I introduce yourself, right? That's now 3 lines deep, and this is multi-level, right? I don't get paid. Anyone that you bring in, I don't get paid on that. So you could go and build a massive organisation, have a turnover of £1 million in sales a month. Brilliant. You'll get paid a Premier League footballer's wages. I don't get paid a bean off that.
Okay.
So what do you get paid off then?
I don't get paid. I won't get paid on that.
So only...
I'll get paid on the 3 levels of my network. And that's how it works, obviously, across the board. Yeah.
But your network is him. Which his network is also...
You get paid on the level below.
No, because that then goes into the 4th level.
But whatever he brings up still kind of adds up as your level, because you're the one who introduced him. So if he's bringing up loads of business... Not particularly, no. Because of his 3 levels. Let's say, for example, you introduce 100 people. They start to introduce a couple of people each. There's 500 people in your network. Let's just say, for example, there's 1,000 people in that network. If they all had 10 customers each, there's obviously a lot of turnover being generated there. You're going to get paid what we call a royalty income on that. I don't get paid anything on that.
So you're not supplying me with the stuff to sell to these.
No. You're an independent. You're independent to the company.
Direct with Herbal Life.
Yeah,
everyone's.
Well, I understand it now. Yeah.
So Danny, who introduced me, on my team's turnover, call it my 3 levels if you like. My team's he gets paid a royalty income on that.
Yeah.
But Danny earns more than me.
Yeah.
Because he's got a bigger business. He's got a lot more going on outside me as well. But on that, Danny will never make as much money on my team or my network or my business as me.
Yeah,
so you're your own independent
he still gets a royalty.
Because he's directly attached to me. He's first level. Makes sense?
Yeah, it does now.
So yeah.
I feel like a lot of people needed to understand that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so there's always, going back to progression, because people feel like they're always going to be under someone. Anyone that I introduce, and this is what we want people to be better than we are.
Yeah.
Because they've been more successful. Of course, we receive a reward for that in return.
But that royalty, though, it's not, you know what I mean? It's a good royalty, surely, because of the people that they're bringing. Say they're bringing...
So is that football like a finder's fee kind of thing?
Similar.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a good royalty, but it's not as much as they'll get paid.
No, of course not.
So, i.e., if someone makes a sale to a new customer tomorrow, they're going to benefit from that a lot more,
way more,
like 10 times more than what I will.
No, of course, though. But you remember, you could be getting royalty.
But then if you've got 100
people,
people,
that's the aim.
There has to be some sort of gain.
So how? Sorry,
there has to be some sort of gain.
Has to be.
Why would
that
that introduce people for no reason?
How old was Danny?
Roughly.
I don't want to start adding or taking years off him now. Danny would have been about 30 because I was.
What level was he at?
Danny's at a 40. No, I lied. Danny's at a 60k president's team business now. So basically means he's got 6 times a president's team business. So our level,
he's platinum president.
He's 6 times.
Wow.
By the way, his brother introduced him.
Wow.
And he is.
Oh, so that's how he got into his brother.
30k, so he's 3 times. So although.
Oh, so they're rich.
Lee. Although Lee introduced Danny,
tell the people that they need to know.
He receives a reward on that, but his reward isn't as big as Danny's. If Danny's done more work.
Wait, hold on a second.
Hold
on a second, because
I overheard that bit there.
I was like to it. Why didn't we get under this? When we were playing, Izzy was like,
what with a president?
Listen.
What with a president?
Izzy said, I got invited to the first.
I went to the
meeting.
first meeting
Oh, hold on. Oh, what's going on there? What we talking about here?
in Edgware Road.
You see what I mean? Could he play for West Ham? He thought he didn't need it.
No, no.
Is this arrogant like that?
Nah, it wasn't even.
We need people like Garry.
Gaz.
Humble young men. Humble young
Garry
men.
didn't want to be a floor layer. He's like, I'm gonna do it. Is he like, nah?
You men are shouting. Let me speak. No. Let me, bro. You're speaking for me. Let me speak.
Talk your truths.
Listen.
Arrogant.
I went to a meeting, right, and I just kind of, I think I stopped playing like a year and a half, and the transition, I was in deep depression.
That's too early.
Right?
That's too early.
So deep depression, went there, listening to them, like wanting to do it, but didn't know how to start. Like
To be fair,
it was all confused, and like was all over the place. I was like, you know what I mean? Like you said, like you earn a lot of money playing football. Then when you stop, nothing's coming in. And like when they're telling you can do this, you can do that. You
don't want to be a salesman.
I don't want to be reaching out. You know how it's like
And
going out
especially
to
if
your ex-teammates and stuff like, "I'll do this, do that."
You were doing it before, so you believe.
While you were playing, you were still doing it while you were playing
The product.
You know what I mean?
So you
But
believed
he had
in
somebody
Yeah.
that believed in what they were
No,
doing.
but he believed in it himself. He believed in the product.
But it
he
was
said he was using
easier
it
though
beforehand,
because
didn't
he? That's what I'm
he
saying.
was still playing, so you were still in the changing rooms. I wasn't in the changing rooms. I
Yeah,
couldn't
to go
get
back in
access
and
to
you
go
know what
back.
you
You're
used to
seeing
get
it as a,
with
You know what I mean? It's
you're
difficult.
seeing it as a way to earn money. That's the difference.
No, but so was he, bro.
No.
But he was still
using
in it, remember?
beforehand already.
No, but
Yeah,
he was,
yeah.
he was.
So he believed in it.
100%.
If you're
And he said he
already
believed in the product.
using it, then it's easier to believe in it.
If you believe in it,
It's a lot easier to believe.
it's like if you're selling a car, but you're already driving that car.
You're already
it's easier for you
driving
to
that
sell
car, bro. Like it's a lot easier to sell a car that you're driving.
Yeah.
Bro, if I get paid, I can believe in it, bro.
Nah, but
So why do you do it then?
You might
This
be
is
able to
what-
sell it.
We're here now. We're here now.
You might be able to sell it, but you don't believe in
Hey,
it.
Fully, we're here now.
But this is what we're talking about. Like the depression I was going through, deep. I couldn't get through past that
Yeah, after
depression at the time.
That's
You know what
why,
I mean, after
guys,
football.
what you're saying, like,
So I still had a
after
block
football-
in that moment. It was still difficult for me to like get past, like to transition into anything else.
Yeah,
And when they were talking, when I was listening to them, I was like, I want to do it, but I just couldn't break through. I just couldn't.
Well,
you know what I
I
mean?
heard that.
you're very mentally strong, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. You're very, very mentally
Yeah,
strong.
100%.
For on the same day to get that news, to start making a plan to move forward. And I got the same
100%.
similar news at 26. And I just thought, I'm just going to play football. So
100%.
Can't do nothing else. And even within that 5 years that it took me to retire, I still weren't making a plan to do something after, because I thought, you know what? I don't know. I knew I couldn't pass a medical or anything like that. I know something had happened. Then when I finished playing and I retired early, my mindset was just like, I'm done. I'm done with everything. I'm done
100%.
with football. I'm just going to go and no disrespect to anybody that does a normal job, but just an average Joe. I'm just going to you know what? I'm just going to be here. I don't want no one to see me. No one to talk about football anymore. That was that. And this is now. So at 26, to have that mindset to be like,
100%.
I'm going to do something. Whether it worked, and I'm happy you're here and you can talk about it and being a success, but you didn't know that at that time.
100%.
So your mental mindset was top.
Anything that he believed in, he would have done.
Yeah, and for the people that
100%.
watch this, I hope they take inspiration from that.
100%.
Just to believe that you can be anything if you take a chance. Because you see in the contrast, Izzy said he wasn't ready because where he felt at the time.
Exactly.
And I'm sure he don't regret it, but at the same time,
No, I definitely regret it.
you could have been presidential.
You're on the right path,
Do you
because
know
you know
what
what
I'm
it is. When it comes down to individual decisions, you're not in control of another man's life.
Nah, you can't look back at it.
So you can
what's
look at Izzy's
what's for
story.
Garry isn't for you.
There you go. You understand?
And that's what I always say. What's for you won't pass you. Do you know what I mean? It was our time to do
And
certain
that's the
things.
truth. And we haven't even got onto the real story.
Oh no, we haven't. No.
I think I just want to wrap up really on Izzy's point here as well too, and speak for anyone else, is that everyone's journey is unique to themselves, right?
100%.
You know, and I want to be real, and I always try and be real when I'm sharing my story, even to our network within Herbal Life and the team, is that, listen, I said no I was the guy that said no for 7 or 8 months before that. I probably would have been the guy that continued to say no for, I can't say this is just making a claim, you know, 8 years after that. because of I was at a different phase of my life, and it was, like I said, having all those strings cut and everything kind of the rug pulled from beneath my feet to go, be real with yourself now, gal. You know, this is the alternative, and that's the tough thing coming out of the football dressing room, is that we end up in a lot of conversations like this, and it ain't. It's easy to get involved in something like Herbal Life because it's pretty much next to nothing to get yourself involved. But the tough part is building it, and making it work. And when you're having to have the awkward conversations and people are saying it's maybe this, it's maybe that, you can imagine there's been thousands of those conversations over the years. They get fewer and fewer as you grow, but it's enough to put people off in their first day even. You know. Stick the product in the cupboard again and go, actually, I was really inspired when I came out of that meeting. Maybe he's right. It's not for me, you know. And
that's all it takes.
100%.
That one conversation, that one unfortunate situation,
and then you're derailed, and then you're on another path. And like you said, you just want to be normal again. And listen, there's been some challenging times in my own business and my own journey for life after, and stuff like that as well too. I'm not sat here to say, look. And for everyone, it's plain sailing. You know, it's not that. But at the same time, exactly the same with football. If you go, there's only a few basic things you have to do every day, just like your football. And if you're consistent and persistent and you believe enough in it,
you'll get there.
You'll always get there.
Always.
And listen, people say, I missed the boat. And listen, your times when your time is Herbal Life's been 42 years. I've been 10 years, and I really see myself as just getting going, you know?
Facts.
Guys, you said you grew up in Harold Hill. I lived in Harold Woods, which is like across the road from it.
All right.
Are
you telling me where you live in that?
No.
I hear your thing.
I lived in Harold Wood, and I knew, like, we heard about Harold Hill being like, you know, dangerous, and you know what I mean, that's the rough part. Growing up in Newham, wearing the Harold Hill's rough, like, you know what I mean? So it must have been.
That sounds wild.
I
was thinking that.
Wild, like, when I was young, people saying Harold Hill's rough.
But there's different wilds.
I was like, yeah. So I was always a bit wary of Harold Hill. You know what I mean? So, like, you know, tell me. I know you had you know, to move on to this, like a big tragedy in your family.
I was gonna get there
at a very young age.
You know, a very, very young age, and you know, if you don't mind, because I know we talk about everything from football to music to like street life and stuff like that, and like I said, a tragedy happened in your family. If you just don't mind sharing that with us, and to our listeners, to anyone that's watching.
So this is the tough part, I suppose, of the chat. But at the same time, I just want to say, obviously, it's only ever to inspire other people, and for anyone who may need a little bit of comfort, I suppose, in not my story. This isn't my story. I'm the messenger, really, and I consider myself very, very lucky. You know, this is Chris's story, and unfortunately, Chrissy can't be here today to share his story. You know, so at 17 years old, like I shared at the start of the chat, is that from a close family, initial family, but quite a large family with cousins, and I was lucky enough to have grown up with a lot of my best friends, because they was all my brothers and my cousins, and my cousin in particular was part of a family of 5 children, obviously the 2 adults, Chrissy. And Chrissy and his family, his eldest brother Ray, there was Chrissy, there was Colin, and his youngest brother Paul, who's like my right arm as well, with similar age, and he's got a young sister Shana as well too. His father Kevin is my mum's brother, but as a family, I've got two older brothers. We kind of always grew up close together. So although they're cousins, they're really brothers. Yeah. It sounds a bit cliche, you know. No. But I said to Izzy earlier is that we'd always be on family vacations together. We'd be playing run-outs in the street together, having a kickabout over the park together in my earliest days of starting to explore, explore like the nightlife of Romford. Chrissy would be, and my oldest brothers and my oldest cousins would be taking us under their wings, and it'd be taking me to my first training sessions, even at Colchester, and when I was younger at West Ham and stuff, because obviously Chrissy was a little bit older than myself, 7 years older than me. So he's always like my big brother. And we would always, at big family occasions or big events, on things like New Year's Eve or big family parties, anniversaries and stuff, we'd gather at a local social club on Harold Hill, believe it or not, in a retail industrial estate. For anyone that knows the area, near Gallows Corner, you've got the BMW garage, and opposite there you've got the Tesco's or Harold Wood and stuff. And we would gather down there, you know, because it was a private affair. It's a little function venue, and obviously you was never bothered down there, you know, just on the industrial site where no one would follow. But unfortunately, or going back then, 2003, seeing in 2004, that evening, like we did for a lot of New Year's Eves, we had to have a little local New Year's Eve party, where we obviously had a family gathering, and obviously all the family are there, and just a traditional knees up, if you like, amongst the family. There's a bit of drink going down, lots of dancing, lots of fun, and it had progressed late into the evening. We'd seen in the new year, and it had started to progress into early morning. It was due to finish at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the evening was going so well. You have your little DJ there. We paid him for an extra hour to stay, keep it open till 2 o'clock because you could, and naturally as you do. And Chrissy was seeing a girl at the time, and she was obviously Chrissy was at the party with his brothers and my brothers, and so on and so forth. And Chrissy was seeing a girl at the time. She'd had a drink, obviously. She wanted to go home. It was absolutely hammering down outside. Chrissy obviously wanted to stay with the family and all leave together. So she kind of left by her own account. Chrissy had followed her at the party. And say my uncle, it's my kind of second uncle. It's Chrissy's direct uncle through his mum's side. But he's like an uncle to myself. Is that Uncle Barry and Auntie Dawn went out the door after him, just to say they lived opposite in a family home, just opposite to Chrissy. And all I was going to say is, like, take my keys, get yourselves home. We're just about to leave anyway, you know. So they've kind of followed them out. And as they've gone out into the road, where it was really obviously lashing down with rain, Jamie was, Chrissy's girlfriend at the time, was a bit emotional. And Chrissy was just like, oh, right, calm down, we'll leave, blah, blah, blah. Barry at that point had come over, said, Chris, you know what, take my keys, get yourself home, we're going to wrap up. On that note, unfortunately, a passerby, which I can share a little bit more details if you want in a second, it kind of came out of, say, nowhere, walking through the industrial estate again, where you kind of don't really get any people. I'd noticed Chrissy kind of shouted out, oh, keep your hands off her, and Barry just told me, oh, leave it, mate, it's his family, and kind of that was it. Just started to walk towards the back of Chrissy, and when Barry thought he'd started to punch Chrissy, Chrissy wasn't a big lad, but he was obviously go gym and could hold his ground a little bit, but he was still quite short. Barry was very, very short. It was like, why ain't Chrissy kind of protecting himself? But when he thought he was being punched in the back, he realised he had a 9-inch knife in his other hand, and he was punching him with one hand, and obviously stabbing him with the other. And unfortunately, the first knife wound went straight through Chrissy's heart, which sadly, obviously, was the one that killed him that evening. So, it brings the
we're all stuck to words there.
You know what it is? Like, we all knew the story, read up on it and stuff, but to hear it through someone, the family member that was there that night, when it's New Year's, it's a family occasion, you're all there, it's a celebratory thing. Wow.
Just to break it down a bit, he was engaged, wasn't he? He was engaged, was he?
The guy, he had an
the guy that come over was engaged. He had a engagement that night. As well, he was drunk apparently.
The guy who killed Chrissy actually proposed that evening.
Yeah.
At midnight at a local pub.
But then it went left for him, didn't it?
Go on.
Yeah, and then an argument had broke out in the local pub don't know if you remember it, the Plough Pub on Gallows Corner. It's now
what you're talking
KFC.
about, yeah, it's
Gallows
KFC now,
Corner.
yeah.
So that used to be an old pub called the Plough. And he'd apparently ended up having a bit of a to-do with one of his close friends. Went back to get a knife to take to his friend. Obviously, people were dispersed and rumour had kind of got around, just get yourself out of here, clear yourself out of the pub and stuff. And yeah, it was from that event there that he'd gone back to visit the pub, gone across the road to the Tesco's garage across the road. He was seen on CCTV trying to get into the petrol garage for what they think was fags at the time, cigarettes. Obviously, it wasn't open at that time in the morning. Proceeded to slash 4 car tyres because he was obviously very angry. Yeah. And as he passed back through the industrial estate, it was just one of those unfortunate situations where Chrissy was in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know, and unfortunately,
at the time,
another person decided to take his life.
The thing is, right, at the time of the stabbing, he was talking to his girlfriend, right? Chris was talking to his girlfriend. And this guy comes up, stabs him in the back a few times. Well, not a few. How many times was he stabbed? Can you remember?
Times?
7 times?
8 times.
Yeah, seven, eight
so
times.
your uncle was there as well?
Just
your uncle
not as close.
Obviously, he's not thinking anything's happening. I'm not saying.
Yeah, he couldn't see that far, right? When he was there.
Who's that?
Your uncle got stabbed as well.
Like the guy that was
Hold on, so
the
your
family
uncle got
member that
stabbed
was
as well?
the guy that was with Chrissy got stabbed 3 times when he went to try and help.
That's crazy.
But what I was getting at was like, so this guy wasn't caught for 7 years, right?
Yeah, that's what
that one confused me because there was people there.
Don't understand that.
Yeah, there were people there.
Explain that part. Because
gap.
obviously everyone's going to think it's
why was there such
it's
a big
murder
gap?
case, it's this and that. Why? So
When
you were 17 at the time, right?
Yeah, I was 17 at the time.
And he got convicted 7 years later.
2004.
Yeah.
So you're having to deal with
No,
loss of your older brother.
11.
I'll say older brother, but he's your cousin. But I say as brother because you grew up, you're so close. So you're having to deal with that. The whole family's having to deal with this loss and no justice. And then, so just get on to forget to when he did get convicted. What was that 7 years like for you? Knowing that your uncle had been there and seen this guy.
Did he see him?
Do you know what I mean? Obviously, he's not going to know who he is, but like he's seen him.
No, but
so he knows that someone's done this.
Yeah, but your uncle saw the guy.
Yeah, but
so he knew who did it.
But you don't know.
Yeah, no, but hold on. The reason I'm getting that right, the story says that they got another guy and nearly convicted another guy.
He went to the Old Bailey.
Oh, really?
He spent a year inside.
But your uncle saw who it was.
Yeah.
But never said anything.
He didn't want to say it. He didn't want to get involved in that part.
No, obviously my uncle was a witness.
Yeah.
Chris's girlfriend was a witness.
Yeah.
So the auntie was a witness. And
so how can they get the wrong guy if they saw who it was?
In that instance.
Because there was obviously in that instance, obviously things.
It happens quick. Listen, I've been there.
Going back to then again, building the picture, you're on an industrial estate that
people are drunk.
People have had
it's
a
New Year's Eve as well.
Yeah. It is hammering
New
down
Year's
with
Day,
rain.
right? Yeah.
The guy's got long hair, at that time, fairly long hair, and in an instance, pretty much got his head down. And obviously, it all happens. But then going back, for example, so when they convicted or say not convicted, charged, sorry, the other guy, it's 5 years later. You know?
Oh, was it 5 years after it happened?
5 years after.
Wow.
So you're then dealing with e-fits and trying to call on your memory from 5 years ago.
And I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Let me be honest with you. If it happened to my family and someone looked half like the person that I thought might have done it, I don't care. Like, I'm at that time after 5 years of injustice, so to speak. Like when you don't know, it's difficult, and you don't want to put anything on someone that's innocent, but at the same time,
yeah, I don't know. It's hard to point fingers, man. It's
I
hard
know
to send someone.
it's
hard to
so
send someone to
hard.
prison.
But if you
innit?
think
If you
it's
don't know,
somebody-
you don't know. It's hard to. It's tough. Like I don't want to keep going back.
So
at
but
it.
what
Like,
happened with the CCTV?
when you've tested it, You know what I mean? When you've been inside, right, it's hard. If you're not 100% sure, listen, if you're a law-abiding citizen, and like, no one's saying you're snitching, whatever, you're just telling the police you're a law-abiding citizen, you go to work, you can speak to the police, right? So if you're speaking to the police and you're not sure, it's hard to say you're that person, man, because to send someone to jail, that's like, he could have, the guy, if he got convicted, he's doing life, right?
Yeah.
And then this guy would have got away with it.
Yeah.
So let me just...
sorry. Can I just step in?
Yeah, of course.
So that guy who was charged,
was
charged on the basis of the police investigation.
Okay.
And no one else, no witnesses, no this. There was certain.
So he must have been caught on
certain circumstances led them to believe, beyond probable doubt, it was him on that evening.
Okay.
And obviously they brought him in to question again, and to a point that they felt confident that they had a case, and so on and so forth. And obviously they made the mistake. So you can imagine, as a family, by the way, you go to the Old Bailey, you travel up there as a family.
It's both sides of things, isn't it?
You spend a week, or 5 days on the first case. And as a family, listen...
You think you got justice?
Yeah, you think you got justice, you think you're going to get the outcome, and things happen during the case where you kind of almost, obviously because there's his own defendants and so on and so forth, but there are certain circumstances where, hang on a minute, he was in the area that night. You know, hang on a minute, he did look a little bit like, hang on a minute, the stride, because it was actually one of the big things for him was, believe it or not, you asked a minute ago actually, the CCTV, 60 cameras, the man got caught on that evening, and because of it was raining so much, because it was so dark, the best quality cameras were the Tesco's, but going back nearly 20 years ago, 18 years ago, they aren't like they are now. They're very fragmented. They're from a distance in rain. Can they get a clear facial? Not on one of them. 60 cameras. Can they get a way of the suspect movement?
Did they get a stride pattern?
So they have a stride pattern expert, and it was actually the stride pattern expert was the main piece of evidence for that investigation, which then brought it to the Old Bailey and also see the person inside for a year.
Those people can be bought though.
And then we realised, and everyone realised, it was black and white. After 5 days, a piece of evidence come up and he's like, it's not him. And it destroys you.
Of course.
You know, and
especially after 5 years to bring it all up fresh.
My aunt, you want it to be, and you're holding on to that.
You just want someone to just pay for it.
My auntie and uncle always said, obviously, if you try and control as a mother and father, you've got to control your own emotions, but you also got to control the emotions of your boys, your young girl, and cousins and stuff. You can imagine, obviously, Howard Hill's a very close community where people talk, and you can imagine the rumours and the gossips and the hearsay, and there's so much of it. It becomes like a constant 24/7 game of crime watch. And whenever there was a lead, Sue and Kev, Chris's mum and dad, always said, do you know what? And they're, if you met them, they're amazing people. You know, of course it's easy for me to say it, amazing people, special people. And they always said, listen, and they brought us together a few times because obviously there was some emotional conversations.
There's a lot of boys in your family as well.
Boys
don't act on it.
Yeah. And they do, anytime that any situation and there was a bit of turmoil or such, there was a bit of hearsay and a bit of chatter, they'd always turn around and say, listen, these people are somebody else's boys. They belong to another mother and father. Let's not ruin someone else's family by getting the wrong person. Let the police do what they need to do. Let's support them in the best way we can, and let's be the best representation for Chrissy that we can be throughout. So throughout the whole 7 years, and there were some challenging moments, as you can imagine, that was always the case, that the police would be leading, we would be supporting, and no matter what anybody said, even if you're 99.9% of the person, it isn't until that hammer goes down in court, you know.
After that 5 years and
7 years.
No, the first guy was 5 years, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when he didn't get convicted, and you lost hope, what happened after that? How did he then get caught? Like, who came? Did anyone come forward? Like,
That's
what
7
was
years.
the...
You talking about the
No,
person
no.
that
After the
actually
5
went-
years, I'm saying, like, the
So
2
you want to
years
know what the
after.
feeling in between.
Yeah,
is.
in between, like, what actually happened?
Okay, yeah.
Did they give up hope? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I know it was 7 years that.
Yeah.
Well, the case, because again, the case to stay open, obviously it needs leads. It needs new leads,
Always, yeah.
so on and so forth, to be able to work on the case, right? And when obviously leads are chased and they go cold and close, and so obviously a period of time, obviously that happened. Guess what happens? It then becomes so much harder to convict someone in the court of law, having already had that. So that was the worst thing that could happen. Not that it just weren't that person, but now you've got that against you, because now they're like, not only have we got to try and find the person, but we've got to try and find the person knowing that us as police have already put the wrong person
And
up
the
for
defence will
trial.
always say you've already
use
accused
that,
someone.
yeah.
So you've always stacking up with that.
Yeah.
So obviously you can imagine obviously a lot of change within the infrastructure of the investigation with the police team and all the rest of it. And a moment of time obviously where they pretty much say we haven't got anything to go on. We've got to close the case until further notice as such. And then there's a couple of situations, but the most noticeable or the most significant, that's the right word, is that, again, to give you a character of the person, the guy who had proposed to his soon-to-be wife that evening that took my cousin was also sleeping with some young girls at that time, 16s and 17-year-old girls, whilst all this was going on before and whilst this was going on. And there was only a few people that he had kind of obviously broke down to, and one of it was one of the young girls. And obviously kind of opened up to her what had gone on that evening. And that young girl, don't quote me on it, 5-6 years later, decided she wanted to become a police officer. And then to become a police officer, you have to swear an oath that you don't know anything untoward. And she, at that point...
Can they use that though? Isn't that admissible?
That was enough to reopen the investigation. And then obviously other things have come. Other things have come forward. And yeah, a few other bits and pieces, obviously. Few things from phones, from other witnesses, other people. Obviously, you know what it's like in the case when one person comes forward, obviously other people start to come forward as well. And that was the big breakthrough for obviously the police to reopen the investigation. And you go back through the process, guys inside, but you still got to wait for the trial. You all travel up the Old Bailey together, and you're back in where you were a few years before that. And thankfully, obviously, it all led to being the right person. We got the outcome, and the guy got 27 years for murder on Chrissy and attempted murder onto Barry as well.
He didn't plead guilty.
Sad story. It's a very, very sad story.
And
I know justice isn't even enough because it doesn't bring Chrissy back for you, but it must have been a little something.
At that point, it was a massive something.
Yeah.
You know?
After 7 years, do you know what I mean? Just someone to be accountable for the loss of your...
Yeah, because of losing someone is one thing. Having someone taken
away from you, yeah.
It's a whole different level. Again, going back to all the bitterness, the anger and so on and so forth. And of course, that's always going to be there, that how can somebody go out their way to take a great guy, somebody that you're so close with, away from you and their family, more importantly. But knowing that when that clock strikes midnight every New Year's Eve, which is the toughest evening, as you can imagine.
I didn't even think about that.
And you can imagine every year, And for 7 years, when you're like that clock striking New Year's Eve, and he's down a pub, seeing it in with all his mates,
remembering,
getting, you know what. So it settles a lot of that stuff down. And when the conviction, when the big day came, it was a huge lift for the family. We all went out and got really drunk, along with a lot of the team as well too, that was part of the investigation, because of they grew
in a long way.
So close
you'll grow
to the
together,
family.
Of course
and
you do.
listen, like
Cases like that, they take on board.
Yeah, and obviously you get an idea of the family, what sort of character Chrissy was. And Chris was, like I said, it was a good guy from a good family. And obviously they grew their own emotional connection through the case. And pretty much everyone who was in court that afternoon was down the pub with us that evening. And it was a great night. It was a great moment.
Good. And
it doesn't bring any type of justice, I suppose, but it brings a closure to a part of Chris's journey, and more importantly for Chris's brothers and little sister and his mum and dad.
Most important,
you know, because of as a dad, so you know yourself, you're responsible.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine
rest in peace, Chrissy.
I want to leave it on a lighter note as well too. He's kind of just say, look, it is, like I said at the start, it isn't my story. You know, it's been a long time, obviously a lot of tears, a lot of all the rest of it, but it isn't shared for self sympathy. You know,
of course
never want to. You know, it's always paid back to Chris's direct family and Chrissy himself. But at the same time, I suppose, really, in sharing Chris's stories is two things. Really, is like you said there, is that there's always the immediate impact and the indirect impact,
100%.
And to have seen it destroy amazing families, obviously our end. Always, obviously, speaking to whoever you need to speak to, is that always have that in mind. You know, it's not just about obviously the heat of the moment; it's about who else is impacted. And I suppose going back to kind of where we began the chat as well too, is that for me, how I look back on Chris's journey, he was 25 years old. At 17, you feel like he's a little bit older then, you know. You realise he's young, he's a kid still. And it was when that happened at a point in my football career, I always wore a black armband, you know, and that black armband initially was in memory of Chris. And then for the decade after nearly, it was the reminder to myself that every time I stepped on the pitch, I wear that black armband. It's a reminder to myself that I had an opportunity that Chris would have given his right arm for.
Anything can happen.
100%. Yeah, so whether you're on the pitch or not,
anything can happen.
Like someone's life has been taken away from them. Don't wear your whole life. Do what you can do, and that's what you say. That's where your mental strength comes from.
That's what today's about.
That seems where your mental strength comes from. Like, because you realise you've got an opportunity. Your cousin, brother was taken away, and you've still got. You're here, breathing, living. But hopefully, you sharing your story stops other people. Well, helps other people believe in themselves, keep going without having to go through what you went through. Guys, thank you.
Put the knives down, people. Please put the knives down.